This is episode 5 of Beyond the Feed, a space where content creators and media professionals share how they got started, the ups and downs along the way, and where they're going. Today we have Johnny Pace. All I'll say is he is the fastest content creator I know. Let's do this. Johnny, you are, as far as I know, the fastest creator that I know. And I've seen you do videos where you're like just running on the track with your rig, and a gimbal. Like, do you think you could do what you do if you weren't so fast?
Hey, it certainly helps. You know, we always try to get the shot right, and sometimes you're limited by, you can't bring an e-bike, or you can't have a car. Yeah. So sometimes you got to get down and dirty, right? And I think that definitely comes in handy more often than not. It's like shocking how often you just got to pull up on foot. And these things are not light. Like the gimbal plus the camera plus the big lens, it's about 25 pounds, I think. So
are you going one hand?
One hand, yeah, you got to, because you got to keep the other arm swinging. They're going all out. Like nobody's ever holding back, and they're usually shocked to see me like sprinting all out with this thing like held up at shoulder height. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't. It looks ridiculous. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't worth it, because the shots come out clean.
Dude, all these, like, you see these behind the scenes clips sometimes. There's this trend where it's like, what does this guy think he's doing? Yeah, and then you see the actual clip, you're like, whoa, okay, I get it. And I've seen a lot of your footage before seeing the behind the scenes, and I'm like, that I didn't think about what you actually go through to get that shot, because I've done some running photography a good bit, and I'm always on an e-bike. Yeah, I've done it running once, but it was because it was like a slow pace. I'm like, I think I can keep up and like run around. But also doing photography, doing still is easier than video. I think it's like there's way more wiggle room.
But it's cooler. It ends up, it's dynamic. You have the background moving behind you. The gimbal keeps it nice and steady, so it looks like a movie. And so it's always so worth it. Like,
how much of the footage that comes out of these shots is like useful? Because I feel like even though you have a gimbal, there's so much sway because you're running full speed. Or is it typically
you'd be surprised,
pretty smooth?
It's like all usable most of the time. Like,
wow,
it's because the gimbal, the gimbals these days, like even 5 years ago, you get wiggle. It's like always malfunctioning. The new ones, incredible. I don't know what they're doing with it, but that's like the first
part. The technology
is
wild.
The camera's digital stabilization plus built-in lens stabilization. You have kind of like 3 modes of stabilization, plus you can do it in post.
Right.
Something like 4 layers. I use almost all of it. It's unbelievable.
So we dove straight into like some of the crazy shots you've done, but let's talk about where you're doing these things. You've shot, like, you work with FlowTrack. You've shot at like the Olympics, the past Olympics. Like, give me a little summary of like what you do as a content creator. Yeah,
so I work as a senior creative at FlowTrack, which I think, to my knowledge, is one of, if not the biggest track and field media outlets. And the goal there is really to be like the pulse and the heartbeat of like track and field. And so that's going to be everything from high school to the Olympics, right? That whole spectrum. There's stuff happening year round in that sport, and we want to be part of that and be on the ground. So probably in my last 3 or 4 years, I've covered hundreds, probably at this point, of events all over the world, from North America to Asia, Africa, Europe.
Wow.
It's really quite amazing, and no one is quite the same, and that's what keeps it kind of fun.
And currently you're like a full-time employee, which I want to dive into in a bit. Like the fact that this is now like a real career, being a content creator.
That wasn't the plan. It was not.
What was the plan? Yeah,
so I mean, at the start of the year, I had reached a point, about 3 or 4 years of doing this, that I was ready to leave my consulting corporate job that I've been working out of college. Like, I entered the workforce at the perfect time, fully remote, so it allowed me to build this photography career in tandem. And come this year, I was like, all right, I'm ready to take the leap and do this as a freelancer.
And was it mainly in the beginning photography, like still photography?
It fluctuated. Honestly, I think the first thing that kind of got me on the scene was video. I know if some folks will really focus in on one or the other, photo or video, and I it tends to pay off. I like kind of being dynamic. I think they both offer very different. They're different ways of thinking, and they're both so fun. But yeah, I bounce between the two, and I like it that way.
Yeah, I can agree. It's 2 very different. It's just, people think like photo and video. They're like, oh, can you do both? Like, I've had clients ask me before I started doing video if I did both. I'm like, no. Like, that is, you need different equipment. Like, you need it's a totally different process, and I'm starting to like get in more into video myself, and it's a totally different art form. So how did you like, let's go way back. When did you like first pick up a camera?
That's a great question. I've always been interested in cameras. I think what I struggled with was getting access to them, but I mean, I think it's been
just because like the costs, or
I remember like it was so touch and go. Like I'm so grateful for the last 5 years to own my own camera because I can use it every day. I felt like back in college, like you'd rent them out. It was just so sporadic. But I always like to think that I had the eye for it, and so whenever I could get access on the camera, I loved making stuff. I loved, making fun little videos, experimenting with Premiere, even like in middle school. And I was in middle school, we'd get to film like little segments, short films, I guess, whatever we wanted, put it on TV for the whole school. So
was this like for like a film class or like
something like that? It was the TV show for the school. So I've always liked creating things, you know, and sharing that with people. But I'd say things have really gotten real since 2020, I think, which is when I feel like a lot of folks could spend more time focusing on that craft. And in my mind, that's always how I think of.
And is that around when you got you bought your first camera that you could like have on you whenever?
Yeah, change the
like
game.
What led to that? Was it because you had a day job that gave you like the financial stability to start investing in like what was kind of a hobby? Like, what went through your head where you're like, all right, I'm going to buy this camera? And what camera did you buy also?
Yeah. I think there's a bunch of factors, but yeah, having a job definitely helped. Camera's gear is not cheap. And as you get more into it, it doesn't get any cheaper.
It takes money to make money.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think I'd put about $1,500 into like a Canon RP with a 24 to 240. And that's the whole range.
Right. How did that lens work out? Because I feel like when it's that broad of a range, usually there's limitations.
Well, gear's interesting. I mean, as a starter, I didn't know anything, like really anything about settings. It was pretty much full auto for the first year. I just liked the fact that I could get straight up close and then I'll see all the way across the field or something. And then this is a conversation.
That's a crazy range.
Yeah. But you start to shoot in low light. You realize, you start to learn, well, why is aperture important? Like, why are these different features important? And that's always, I talk about
what's this thing called ISO?
Yeah, exactly. But for the first year, it was perfect. And then, I talked about this with somebody yesterday. It's like, it's easy to just like pick the most expensive gear and be like, okay, that's what I need. Right. I think you need to like grow into your gear and like evolve your skills to the point that then you realize why you would need an upgrade. And that was not how I thought about it at first, but I've come to realize like that's how you know it's time to upgrade, because you're like realize you've reaching the limitations of
when your equipment doesn't meet your needs anymore.
Yeah, and you understand why. And
that's a key. You know why.
Yeah.
Like I think it takes money to make money, surely, but I think you can get started now even with an iPhone.
100%.
Right. Like, and everyone has an iPhone. Yeah. We all have phones, but it just so happens the camera technology in iPhones now is so powerful. Like the photo and video that comes out of it is like, it's all you need to get started and like start to kind of practice. And then I do think you can buy like an old camera. Yeah. I personally feel like when I shoot on my phone, I just feel like less present.
Yeah.
Because I think there's like this subconscious, like I'm waiting for a notification or something. Whereas when I'm shooting on a camera, I'm way more like in the zone.
That's interesting.
Do you feel that? Like do you shoot on your phone at all? If you're like trying to get something done quick, like.
I don't, but again, I think we got to give full credit to like that, how that's opened up creation to like the whole world basically. I love it.
Because now everyone has access. Yeah. If you can, I mean,
anybody can be a creator. Anybody can capture their life. It's got its pros and cons, but like, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting sometimes for like behind the scenes.
Right.
But these days you can shoot in professional settings with an iPhone. Like
you can shoot like 4K, 60 FPS, like
log, and
it's wild.
But yeah, the fact that we have really nice camera in the other hand, like I usually, if I'm capturing something, I prefer.
So it's I've experienced this, and I think other people are maybe going through this right now, but like knowing when to dive into like investing in yourself and getting that like next level equipment, like you said, like let's go a bit deeper into like what did it feel like when you went from that first camera to the next camera? Or are you still on the first camera?
Oh, this is like at this point I'm on the fourth.
Okay. So like how do you justify I'm going to invest $1,500 to go from not having a camera to I have now this professional camera that's going to enable me to do a lot more.
That's the thing.
Because it's a pretty scary, it's a scary bet to make on yourself.
Definitely. That's what you said. You're enabling yourself to do more. And so like, I think the reason I went from that first body to the next was like, I needed more than 3 shots a second. Like, I started to find that track action is milliseconds. I need like a lot more than that.
So you can only take 3 photos per second when you're doing still. Yeah.
So that's an example. Or like, I start shooting a lot indoor track and like my lens, the pictures look horrible. They're all grainy and they're not really usable. So it's like, okay, let's look at getting the lens and investing in that. And yeah, I think you got to like really know your needs, but you don't need that if you're shooting in certain environments all the time. Like, I think you need to be
athletics is pretty demanding because of the speed and like just it's so dynamic. People are moving fast, like
autofocus speeds, like that's another autofocus. Like like 20 people moving quickly around space. Like how good is the autofocus? Like those are important factors that could be the difference between getting the shot and missing it.
So if you're to give advice to someone that's like wanting to go more into like leaning into like content creation as a career path, what camera, if they want to go beyond their iPhone, is there a camera that comes to mind that is a good like starting point?
Well, that's so individual. And I guess I'd say
if you have to pick one, because there's a lot of options, but like
I'd say if you're doing video, what I've found is that the Sonys seem to be really, really strong with video, whereas Canon, which is what I shoot on, multi-use, but probably stronger in photo. I'm just going to go with my experience. I'm going to say like a Canon R line, like you can look that up. There's a whole range, like from the RP, which is what I first got, $1,000 now, probably less, up to the R3, which is 3 or 4.
What about buying secondhand? Like, would
Absolutely.
you? Yeah, because I think a lot of cameras, especially now, mirrorless cameras last because there's less mechanical components. They last so long.
So long. That's the thing. I don't know how much of a deal you'll get. I'd almost maybe pay the $100, $200 premium just to have it new because I don't think they like depreciate the same way that maybe older models did. But yeah, no reason you shouldn't be able to get secondhand. I would also say something I leaned on a lot early days is like the big moments. I would just rent. You can rent this stuff for pretty cheap relatively, and you're not on the hook for a lot of money. But you can have your hands on.
Yeah, if you need something super specific, like I did a shoot for New Balance for the marathon.
Turned out great.
Yeah, the metal portraits, and I just needed really powerful strobes because I had a lot of people coming in fast. I'm just like, I'm not going to spend $4,000 on these strobes. No, I'll just rent them for the weekend for like $200. So there's you don't have to buy everything. Like if you do have a project with a really specific need, like there's so many rental shops in New York or probably wherever you live.
They'll ship it anywhere.
You can ship it too.
I've shipped them all over the world. And I guess probably a good question, like a good point. It's like, you probably aren't going to, you also don't want to get in the trap of like buying something that ends up collecting dust in your room. Like think about what are you going to be using on a daily or weekly basis? And then what's realistically something you only need for special occasions. And then you can just rent it.
So what's like one of the craziest spots you've shot?
Oh, yeah.
Like either locations or environments? Cause like obviously like you mentioned, you've done the Olympics, like what immediately comes to mind is like, wow, I can't believe I did that.
That's easy for me. It's I got flown out to Ethiopia in 2023 to shoot with some of the world's best athletes in their home environment. And
wow, what was like the purpose of that project?
So I was hired by a group called NN Running Team, which Eliud Kipchoge is a part of that. For context, he's the best marathoner maybe of all time. And that's kind of the caliber of athlete across the board on the women's and men's side. Mainly African-based between Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda. I think they have kind of 3 hubs, and they're on the ground supporting these athletes who will dominate on the world scene. And you often see them out of their home element, and that's great and everything, but to get to go to like
this is where they live and train and like,
oh my gosh, it was so cool. Eye-opening, and it was so I guess unfamiliar to me to get to see that with my own eyes and like see these beautiful places that they train. It would be crazy. Like we drove an hour and a half dirt roads up into the mountains. I was like, we're in the middle of nowhere. And we get out of the van, and all the world's best are all there at the same time. Like they train in these.
It's got to be kind of like, as a runner, like this is like your life.
Oh yeah.
Were you intimidated or like excited? Like how did you feel?
I just am excited. I never get too intimidated. I was just appreciating growing up, hearing about these sorts of environments.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm here, I'm hired to capture this. Like, this is my job. Like I get to, that's like at the core, like what I love, like mixing the environments with the athletes, and it's about as good as it gets. Like in these beautiful so cool. farmlands, the terrain was unlike anywhere I had ever seen. And
when you're there to like capture that in an authentic way, it's like your job is like, how do I like bottle this up and share this with other people?
Yeah.
It's such a fun game to play.
That's it.
Oh my God.
I see this thing as a game. Like every time we show up, it's like, how can you bottle this and share it? That it's never like work. It's a total game.
Yeah. I did an engagement shoot recently for my friend actually in this office, and his fiance was like, I wanted to feel like New York, but like chic, like, and it's so cool to kind of identify, okay, what is the goal? Like, what is this like emotion and story I want to like share with other people? And then how do I actually do that?
Yep.
Like, and there's so many layers to like that theme and story, to like, okay, do I have the right equipment to like capture that style? And like, what are the settings I'm using, and like the composition? It's like, it's just a game.
Yep. It's like baking a cake almost, because like get your flour, like the base shots, the equipment, the edit, the music, the edit style. Like, is it Instagram? Is it long form?
And then there's this, no matter what you do, there's always some like unexpected thing that happens. That's like the icing on the cake. You're like, whoa, like I have to capture this somehow.
Yep.
Like this engagement shoot, it was like, all of a sudden it was snowing. I'm like, we have to go. There was no plan to shoot in the snow. Like, we have to go shoot outside right now.
Yeah. I love that.
And they're like, well, it's cold. I'm like, you're going to be done in 5 minutes. Trust me, we have to do this. And it like, those were the best photos. Yeah. That's cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about running. Like you talked about, it sounds like your whole life been into like cameras and like capturing moments and telling stories.
Yeah.
But now you do that really within the realm of like running and like athletics.
Yeah.
How did these two things kind of like weave together? Obviously you ran in college. Like, when did you start to find that niche of like running and like athletics content creation?
I'd say even more so than the cameras, like running has been a part of my entire life. Like my parents would push us in the stroller, like when they were out running. I remember going out for my first run when I was 5 years old, racing for the first time, the turkey trot, 5 years old. It's been the biggest, most consistent through line in my life, and has continued to surprise me that it's something that can be enjoyed for life, and I'm continuing to discover that. But yeah, running through elementary school, middle school, high school, winning a state title in the mile, like these are like micro stories that have come to define my life and reach like such cherished chapters. This is a totally unexpected one. I never anticipated that post-college, it was like, I'm either going to keep training at a high level or that's it. Like, we'll just maybe run for fun. I could have never anticipated that it would merge so beautifully. But the cool thing that I was thinking about is like, it's always been me. I'm not faking anything. Like, I don't have
like, this
to. This
is what you do. Yeah. You're a runner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love capturing stuff. Like, thank goodness. Like, I think there was that, I could feel it in college. Like, you start to get the real job. Like, you got to kind of put part of yourself away.
Yeah.
And thank goodness, like, this has always been me. And it continues to just get to evolve and grow in new, unexpected ways. But I love running, and it's so cool to get to be a part of it at this level,
That's awesome. I kind of had a different experience. Like, I grew up in like a household where art was not like that cool. So I was never like into, this is different than the type of running, but it was like, go get a good job and have a stable career, and like, I'm like, cool, that's what I'm going to do. And then eventually I'm like, I got a camera on accident in college, and I started like, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I like taking photos for people. And then I just eventually quit what I thought was my dream job to do like photography and like work on in this whole content space. And I've done a lot of running photography. I think on accident, I met this guy who runs Endorphins, Tyler Schwartz. He's a friend of mine now. And I'm like, man, people that run are like good people. Like they're so like high energy. They're like pushing themselves every day. And like, I like being around these people, and also shooting running is pretty hard. Yeah. Like I'm not as fast as you. So usually I ride a bike, and it's like, it's a game. I'm like weaving through traffic.
Well, it's like it's a one-way trip, right? Like you can't generally it's like you're going on your route. Like you can't stop, reset to get the perfect shot. Like you are,
unless they're running on a track where like
there's a track.
But that's unique. Like, if you shoot a running group, it's like, cause you shoot some running groups too, right?
Of course. Yeah.
You work with Cool Down, I think.
Yeah. I lead the Cool Down group, but I've shot with Endorphins and, all sorts of groups. And I love that trend. It's a fairly newer thing. I think running groups have always been around, but I love like the last 5 years, how it's reached a lot of new people.
Yeah.
And I always say that I love the energy that the people that have come into running recently bring. It's this whole fresh perspective. It's an enthusiasm that's contagious, and how cool that like there's a social outlet for something that used to be a little more niche, and now more and more people get to enjoy it and make friends through it.
Well, I think like there's so many people creating running content that people see that and like, oh, like that person is like just a normal person that happens to also run on a Saturday. Let me go see what this is about. And I think like it seems like social media has played a huge role into like showing anyone that like running can be for anyone. So let's kind of on this topic. How did you go from like, you've been shooting with FlowTrack for like, it sounds like a few years, but you're just
a few months.
I thought, so you've been full time for a few months, but were you doing stuff with them like, well, how did this start then?
Yeah, it's all
because you had your day job, you know, and you're doing like running and shooting on the side. Like, how did you go from that to now having like a salary to be a content creator?
Well, I call this my dream job. Like, this was like a perfect encapsulation of everything that I was doing and wanted to do more of. But it's only the last 4 months, so that's kind of the cool thing was kind of live that freelance lifestyle. Really, it was just like people I used to be on the like teams with, or I used to race, you know, in running, it's like 1 degree of separation. So it's like with even like an Olympic champion, you probably know somebody they went to high school with, or like you ran in college with their friend. It's time and time again, like across the board, like 1 degree of separation in the sport. And so at first it was just like kind of branching from, you know, my teammates at Virginia or people I knew growing up, and one thing to the next, start to pick up some freelance opportunities. You start getting in the door at meets, as a freelancer, supplementing an outlet. And then
this is like after college.
After college.
After college. You're living in New York at the time?
No. So for 2 or 3 years, I kind of lived with the wind. Like I bought a camper van. I just would float East Coast to West Coast, North to South. I wanted to see all of the United States and like figure out where I wanted to actually base myself full time. So for about 2 or 3 years, I was just going to where seemed exciting, where like pro groups might be training or where my friends were going to be. And I got a feel for like what's out there. And New York won out heads and shoulders, like nowhere else, like it, not even close.
Right.
Like I was going record.
Agreed.
Austin, which is where I just moved to, was a second place. And so it worked out perfectly that the job was based there, that I just started. But yeah, New York was only like the last 2 years. And before that, it was kind of that nomad lifestyle, going where the action was.
Exploring.
Yeah.
Especially during COVID, it's like
you had to.
You couldn't go anywhere inside. Might as well just ride around in a camper van and explore the outdoors.
I mean, for me, COVID really teed up this career path because like, office life was kind of just a given, I think.
Right.
Anytime before that. So
that's just what you like expect.
Yeah.
I mean, same like that. Well, this is what I do now. I'm going to have a 9 to 5 for the next 40 years until I retire.
Yeah.
And then you realize like, oh wait, I don't have to do that. Especially now it's there's never been an easier time to start a side hustle or a business.
Totally.
And I think being a content creator is one of like the best options. Like you can literally just tell your story and share like, this is like a part of my life that I enjoy or I'm good at. Like I want to share it with you. And then, I mean, obviously it's easier said than done. You have to stay consistent.
Sure.
But like it's a real career path now.
It's unbelievable.
How do you like, I mean, we've had a few people on this podcast and everyone's monetizing in different ways.
Yeah.
Some people are doing brand deals. Some people are doing like freelance work, like selling their services, like creating content for a business.
Yeah.
You are literally like a salaried employee at like a sports media company, right?
Yes.
that's crazy. Like, this is like, if people are out there do not think this is like a real career path,
true.
I think you're proof. Like, I think this can become more and more like typical for companies to do at certain scales.
Well, yeah, people need storytelling. People need quality visuals, I think, to support whatever they're doing. It's not limited to sports, but yeah, this job, I mean, when I saw the job listing, it was like, it was just too perfect. There's like, no fluff real? On that. There's no admin. There's no like strategy. I mean, if I want to be involved, but like my job to senior content creator. So it's like, I just get to make stuff.
Yeah.
24/7, take on projects that seem interesting and connect with the best athletes in the world.
Yeah.
See the world. I could not be happier with it. It's pretty I mean, when I saw that list, I was like, this is rare, but it's out there.
So how do you think, like we talked about equipment, if you want to get like a certain type of camera to get started, you mentioned the Canon R series, but like what other advice do you have for people that want to get started? Because I've met so many people that I think now everyone is a content creator. We all have a camera roll full of experiences and things we do, but most people don't do anything with them.
True.
And not everyone wants to do anything with them. It's fine. Like, you don't, like, I don't think this is like, not everyone needs to be a content creator, right? But there's a lot of people out there that want to do this.
Yep.
They know it is a real career path now, but they're like just overwhelmed with how to get started and stay consistent. So what do you think, like, what advice do you have for these people on how to get started?
Yeah. It's complicated. So I personally like am not the type that's daily vlogging or showing my personal life too often. I feel like I have more of an outlet with the events that I cover. I think it's incredible the way that people do it. I think you never force it. I mean, I think across the board, all I would say is be true to yourself, be true to your interests, and then you're not working a day in your life. You're not forcing things to happen that aren't meant to. So like, what is it? Like, you figure out what are the three things that make you unique. You like this, and you like this, or you have this skill, and this skill. Where's that Venn diagram overlap?
Yeah.
And then hopefully you're not being anything authentic. Like, I think everybody is unique if you think about it that way. Like, where are things overlapping, and then just make stuff that makes you happy. I think being less outcome dependent. Am I going
or
viral, how many likes is this getting?
It's not a good goal.
It's not the goal. It's always about the journey and the destination. Like, that's what I loved about being a creative versus a competitive athlete, is like, I felt like as an athlete, it's a little more outcome dependent.
Right.
You got to hit the
time. You're there to win.
Yeah, you're there to win.
Either against other people or like against yourself.
Yeah. And so that's a little more binary, but this is like the act of creating is the reward. And so find that for yourself.
There's no wrong answer.
There's no wrong answer. Maybe the other thing is like, just get it out there. Let people see what you're working on. It's not going to have to be perfect. I think there's a kind of the analysis process, or just like, is this perfect, or is it a little embarrassing, or is it not good?
Yeah.
You get good by putting stuff out.
And I've said this before, but I've learned that I love making things too. Yeah. Like, I grew up doing carpentry. I love cooking. I just like to make shit, you know? And when I started making content, I was like, this is crazy, in that this is the first like hobby or interest I'm like exploring where the only way to really learn is by doing it in public. Yep. Like, if you want to explore cooking, you can go cook by yourself. And then once you're good at it, like, tell everyone, hey, like, I'm going to make you dinner. But like, to be good at, to grow as a creator, you have to just put it out there. Yeah. And it's going to probably suck at first.
It almost always does.
That's the only way you get better, though. And I think I like that you mentioned it's important to like be authentic, because it's going to take time. And if you don't work on creating something that you're passionate about and like you're interested in, you're going to give up fast, because you're not going to go viral in your first post or first 10 even, unless you get really lucky. And you just got to enjoy it. Yeah. That's great advice. What does a typical week look like for you? It seems like it's pretty crazy, like week to week.
Each week is different. There's some common threads, but these days I'm based in Austin, so we have an amazing space right there on Congress Street in Austin. It's the first time I've been in an office environment, but I love going in. It's an opportunity to recap what we've been working on, plan for the future, kind of get that touch point with other people on my team, but I'm editing videos, clips that I've gotten from whatever last trip I was on. And that's like Monday to Wednesday. And then usually Thursday to Sunday, we're on the road wherever the action is at that point in time. And so that's the job. Is very travel intensive. It's not for everybody, but like to me, being part of these big events, being on the scene is really fulfilling.
Well, this is where you'd be hanging out anyways.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Like it's you're working on the weekend, but
it's where I want to be.
Yeah, it's like you're just hanging out with your friends.
Yeah.
Shooting photos and videos for them. Like that's a great deal.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like creative workflows. I actually just made a video the other day about how I have to like really be in the mood to edit.
Yeah.
And I'm either in the mood late at night for some reason or after I run. I just get like the creative zoomies, I call them. I love it. Like in those two scenarios. When do you feel most creative in kind of the post-processing realm? Because like going out and shooting is fun, but then when it comes time to actually like deal with all of that and make something out of it is really where the magic happens. Like that's a lot of the work. So how do you approach that? Like what's your process?
That's a great question. I love what you said about post run. I feel like my mind is not quiet and like ready to do stuff until I've checked that box of like move my body. Like it's 100%. Gonna weigh on me the whole time. So that's a great one. Like,
so do you work out like when you wake up or?
I try to. I like to do it first thing I wake up and then a second, maybe sometime in the evening.
Yeah.
Just to
get another creative boost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't love sitting all day. I guess there's 3 that come to mind. So there's that one after a workout. I love right after the events happen. There's so much like residual energy for when something amazing has happened that oftentimes like I'm most locked in right after, and I want to get it out for the world to see.
And you kind of like, it's fresh. You remember the moments that and you want to include like,
and the world is like ready to receive that. Like the it's exciting. Like it's just gone down. Like, and so to share my perspective fresh off an event. And then oftentimes it's like late at night, like when I really have like big editing to do, I usually will pull an all-nighter. I know it's not the best for you, but like I love a late night because probably because there's less distractions. Like it's just time to focus on your work. And I know some people will get up really early. For me, it's generally late night.
Well, I think, when I do event-based work, I typically just ride the wave and go from the event or whatever it is and like go right into editing photos, for example, because it's like, it feels fluid that way.
Yeah.
And you have all this excitement after being in this like real world environment. And it's also in events, like people want the results fast, whether it's photos or videos or like social, whatever. They want it right away. And then you just sleep in the next day. If you're like up until 4 a.m. editing photos. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll also add a big part of my job is like instant turnover.
Yeah.
That's been that's probably like one of the most important parts of the job is like, can you get the photos out on social media as it happens?
Yeah.
Some people would do it and the photos don't look that good. So to me, it's important to get it through post-processing, edited in Lightroom. But how can you do that instantaneously? So get that workflow like dialed in to get it off the camera to the phone or computer.
So are you using like wireless transfer?
Yeah.
And then are you editing like on an iPad or like?
I edit on my phone personally.
On mobile?
Yeah. And then I feel better setting that out.
Yeah.
So that's
you have to like editing. I mean, you can definitely overdo it, but I think photos that are not edited they just do not look the same. And like when you're shooting like on manual, you're purposely like you're shooting with the expectation that you're going to add this style, this creative control after. And if you don't do that, it just looks looks less than half baked.
Yep. And I always wonder if people notice that if they're not like tuned to it. I think they do subconsciously, at least on some level. Like you can just tell, oh, this is clean. Like this looks nice for some reason, but it's important.
I think subconsciously.
Yeah.
I don't think I can look at photos that I've captured and I know I'm like, oh my God, I need to edit that.
Yeah.
Or like if I make a first pass and I look back and I'm like, this needs more work.
Yep.
But then what's like the meme where you're like, the video editor, photographer is like, it's like 4 a.m. and they're like sliding like the exposure slider like this. It's a real thing. No, people aren't going to notice that, but we do.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So on the topic of like career and monetization, like I think there's a lot of ways to make money as a creator. Obviously we talked about you are like this is you have a salary job, but what, like, do you make money in any other, like, do you have any other income streams? Like as a freelance creator, are you allowed to do that? Because I think there's so many ways to make money, and people like to understand like what are the real options of like how I can make money as a creator.
Yeah. I think an amazing aspect of my job is that I can continue to leverage the freelance relationships that I had built that were going to get me to the point that I could do it full-time freelance. Having the job is really a privilege, and it covers so many bases on so many levels. So I most of my energy is dedicated to that. But yeah, being able to supplement, I'll do like campaign photo shoots or more elevated stuff outside of events. Like
how do you find that stuff?
It's all okay. This is maybe for me the biggest takeaway. It's all interpersonal. I don't do any cold calls or emails. There's definitely a lot of opportunity there. I would say like for somebody like trying to break in, that's the way to go. Like you can reach just about anybody.
Phones.
What?
Just, like cold calling, emails,
or DMs. I feel like Instagram is the best LinkedIn. Like I think
for creators.
Yeah,
you're saying like if there's a brand you want to work with,
follow them, shoot them a DM.
Have you ever done that?
That's all I do.
But so now, wait. So I thought you were saying this is interpersonal. Is it for you? Is it more now that like you have a community built?
Yeah.
And kind of a brand built. You have enough awareness of like what you offer, what your style is. You have people think of you, it seems, and like reach out and, hey, can you do this project? And
just from being on the scene, like here's what I saw this last week. Like the world is large, but your industry is small. So whatever that is, like everybody knows one another and
that's a great quote.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, that's what I've at least found. Like, I feel like I am 1 degree or already directly connected to everybody in the running world in one way or another, and that's a nice position to be in. And then it feels a little less overwhelming. But it's like you get to interact with people week to week at Olympics and big track meets, and over time suddenly become old friends, and you can check in with them, and like things come up. There's always a need for ways.
Well, one day they're hiring someone for a project. I'm like, oh, I should hit up Johnny.
Yeah.
Like, why would I not hit him up? That's the best guy for this.
Sure.
So if it sounds like if you aren't at that kind of tier yet of like, you just have the network and the brand visibility of like what you offer, just follow the brands you like and you want to work with and hit them up. And like, what do you think about offering to do things for free?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I did a ton for free. I think that's how you can definitely, it's not a sustainable way to do it. The goal should always be evolve that, but there's no shame in like working for free, especially if it's something you're interested in. I also would recommend like spec shooting. Like you don't have to secure the huge deal before you can make something cool. A lot of my most successful friends that are now working with brands did spec shoots like for fun and created this amazing work.
So they're doing a spec shoot, like they're almost like going out of their way to shoot for like a Nike shoe shoot, like just for fun. And like, this is what I made, and it's kind of a way to get discovered.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
Cool. Yeah, I did. When I first quit my job to do photography full time, I shot like 200 events, I think, in like a year and a half, and almost, I would say probably half of them are free.
Wow.
I didn't know anyone in New York.
Yep.
And I learned that like people love free photography.
They do.
And I just went nuts for like 18 months. And then I noticed that like, even though you might be shooting for free, people don't know that. So if you're shooting an event or a meet or whatever it is you're doing, there's someone there that might like your work.
Yep.
And they don't know you're like up and coming or like just breaking into the space. They just see your work and be like, oh, well, if he's at the same environment I am, there's some sort of credibility there. I want to see if I can hire him for this project I have.
Totally.
And out of nowhere, I just had people starting to hit me up like, oh, can you like do our company headshots? Can you do this event? Can you do that? I'm like, and I'm like Googling, what should I charge for this? And I have like no idea. I'm like, like $2,000. They're like, oh, perfect. I'm like, what? I can make this much money?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think free work is just a great way to build, especially in event settings where you're getting in front of a lot of people. Definitely. It's a great way to build your portfolio 100%. And meet potential clients. Like they're gonna get your photos or your video, and when it's their time to hire someone, they're gonna think of you.
And I mean, hopefully, I would second everything you just said. I think that's a huge part of my story as well. But like, hopefully, it was something that you enjoyed being at as well. Like you're not like, oh my god, I gotta go work for free. It's like I get to go
exactly. I get to do it. Yeah, it was for me. It was a lot of like tech events. Like I wanted to, obviously I'm, working in the tech space. I wanted to meet investors, engineers, like other founders. And like, I like to take photos when I'm doing anything. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to be there, I might as well take some photos for people.
100%.
Okay. So what's next for you? Like you're kind of crushing it.
Thank you.
It sounds like, I mean, you have, like you talked about this intersection. What am I good at? What am I interested in? You're getting paid to hang out where you want to hang out in a space that's like been your entire life, like running.
Yeah.
Are you just like cruising right now? Are you happy with where you're at? Do you ever think like, man, this is what I want to do next? Or are you just like kind of enjoying this chapter?
Thank goodness. I think for a lot of my life, there's always been that pee under the mattress, like something it's good, but everything, I feel like everything is aligned.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited about what's before me for so many reasons. I feel like I'm still just getting started. 4 months is not a long time. And the task that FlowTrack has and the opportunities that we have in front of us are so thrilling. It's everything I've dreamed of and wanted to be a part of. So not too, I know things will be good down the road. Like have no concern about that. But like this work feels so meaningful and still so much left to do. That I'm just focused on this and doing the best job I can because all the pain points have been removed. I'm been given an open runway to make an impact in this space. And so I just really want to appreciate this, enjoy the ride. And there's so much happening this year and beyond. Like, I think what really drew me to this company specifically is they also have the rights to the preeminent professional series in track and field outside of like an Olympic Games. Like it's called the Diamond League. Okay. This is like a 10 or 12 meet circuit all over the world, China, Europe, America. It's the pinnacle like of competition in the sport. And for years it was kind of held by NBC, and FlowTrack actually got the rights to it starting this year. So like we are the broadcaster of this series. And so I'm already cleared to go to China next month.
So you get to usher in this new wave of like, I guess, media control for this series.
We get to share the stories. I think the opportunity with FlowTrack that we always try to do is like, yes, cover the events, but tell the stories behind it, be on the ground with the athletes in the months leading up to it, share the inside look, give fans that inner perspective. And now we get that opportunity. We can film at the events. Like, there's so much possibility, and that's really what
how do you like. I talked with Alan about this. Alan Ye, he's the first guy that we had on. He told me, and since he told me this, I've been seeing it so much. But like behind the scenes, like the authentic process is like people love that.
They do.
So and it sounds like you're doing a lot of that. It's like this is like what's actually happening with the athletes on the ground, like between races, or like actually like we haven't really talked about the content you're making. Like we talked about some of the shots that you've grabbed running around the track, but like, you're there? Is it more for the behind the scenes, like boots on the ground, like the kind of like deeper storytelling aspect of like the characters?
Yeah, I think it's a yin and yang. Like, yes, I'm on site a lot, capturing the events as they happen. I think the other equal and probably more personally fulfilling portion is that behind the scenes, and that's working with athletes, and that takes a lot of trust, I think. Like, but athletes seem to be opening up more to show, everything before the start of the race. I think the one that's most exciting for me right now is I'm working with Josh Kerr, who's the Olympic silver medalist, the reigning world champion in the 1500. He's one of the first guys I ever worked with 4 or 5 years ago, and so he's a friend of mine. And we're kind of showing his behind the scenes as he's moving through this very interesting time in track and field, and in one of the most like tightly contested events. Right, there's a lot of really good guys, and this is a new thing. I don't think this was a thing 5 years ago. I don't know. I'm always fascinated with how this has evolved, but showing the behind the scenes is really cool, and that's
it's
the sort
kind
of thing
like the personal brand right now is like is huge. I think you're right. 5 years ago wasn't as much of a thing. I think it was like for like huge athletes like Tom Brady or like Kevin Hart, like these massive celebrities. People like to learn about their life, but now it's like I think it's becoming more democratized. People want to learn more about the personal brand, the life of like people they connect with more.
And I would just sprinkle in here as like another piece of advice. I think that's a huge opportunity right now is helping people share their stories.
Yeah.
You don't need a brand approval to work with somebody directly usually. Like,
yeah, that's such a great point.
And so many people want that and need that. And that would be a great way to like kind of break into that space, whatever area you're interested in, like personal storytelling.
Just to go offer to highlight like the behind the scenes day in the life, or just whatever sort of like content format you want, but like that personal brand of like someone that you like, one of your idols. Mm-hmm. They're not going to turn you down. Like if you're like, hey, I want to come like shadow you and I'll make you something like, I'm going to help you tell your story. Mm-hmm. No one's going to say no to that.
I'm seeing it more and more. I mean, these are young people, 18.
And then they bring you with you.
Yeah.
Or they bring you with them. Yeah.
I mean, some of the best stuff right now is coming from high schoolers or college students that are doing this sort of thing. And I can only see that growing. Like,
yeah. So they're following around their
idols,
their idols and being like, I'll bring my camera, cool you do your thing. Yep. Like, yeah. Yeah. Cause you can only like do so, we were talking about this on the elevator. Mm-hmm. You can only do so much as a one-man team, like capturing content yourself. But when you have someone like a fly on the wall, there's like, you can do 100 times more in terms of composition and perspective and storytelling.
And just energy management. I mean, for us, we have a lot of stuff we're working on, or athletes, their job is to perform and compete, or whatever sphere you're in. Like you can always have creative input, but like helping outsource and collaborate with somebody.
You're locked in.
Yeah.
Doing like creating content is a lot of work.
It's a full-time job.
And if you're trying to do that and also your job, whatever it is, it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess in terms of like, we talked a little bit about your creative energy. Like sometimes it's late at night after an event, but like what other tips do you have for people that like, how do you make creating content more sustainable? Whether you're creating content for other people or you're doing it for yourself, a day in the life in New York, like what tips do you have on that, on like avoiding burnout and like creating content consistently?
I mean, that's something I'm actively thinking about, especially lately. I'm traveling every week, like nonstop. And each time the goal, like how to funnel that creative energy and not just be complacent or phone it in. It's so important. So like the basic stuff, the rest, making sure you're resting, taking care of your body, eating the right stuff. It's boring, basic stuff, but like, I think health and wellness is going to lead to everything else. So check those boxes, always get enough sleep. And then I'm a big believer in like following your gut. I think your gut knows, like it doesn't lie. Like when you have a concept or a proposal brought up to you, like you immediately, I think, have an internal reaction of, is this something that is moving me towards what I'm trying to do, or a distraction or moving me away from it? And yes, to an extent, you should say yes to opportunities when they come, but like, I think you really know what things you should take on. So basically, and a more positive way to say it is just like follow your excitement, follow what is generating some energy in you, and move towards that and do it and capture it. So
yeah, authenticity, chase like what energizes you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I like that.
Like, yes, I could fill up the calendar with a bunch of wedding shoots, but that personally is not what's getting me out of bed in the morning. So like,
dude, that is such a great point. I've had so many people ask me, oh, do you shoot weddings?
Yeah.
And I've done like a couple small weddings, or actually I love doing proposals and engagement shoots.
That's fun.
Like I love that, like capturing a love story is that's awesome. But like the operational side of shooting weddings, like planning a year out, working every Friday, Saturday night, like it's just like some people are built for that and they love it. And it's just like, that's not me, you know? Sure. You can make so much money doing that, but I don't want to do that.
Right.
And
I don't know about you, but like I'll do like 1 to 2 a year for like very special people to make. Yeah. I think that is fun. But.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just did my friend's engagement shoot, and it's amazing. Like to know that it's like this really special moment that, you know, they're going to take one of these photos or a couple and put them on their wedding invitations that like all the most important people in their life are going to see. And it's going to be like on their mantle 10 years from now. Like that's so cool.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that as much for strangers. Sure. Even if they're paying me a lot of money, I'd rather ride a bike and shoot a running group for free. Like, you know, you gotta chase what you enjoy, and the money will come. Like if you if you stay consistent, which you will do if you're doing something you enjoy, like you'll end up finding some money, whether it's working with clients or brand, whatever. Like it's you just gotta chase what is fun to you and energizes you.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. You've given a lot of great advice.
I don't know, but thank you.
But the last piece is very like kind of high level, like philosophical question.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think being creative is important to people? Like, why do you think people should be creative?
I think it is the essence of what life's all about. Like, we are made to create. Humans make things, and I think it's the greatest expression of life and our experiences. And it's so personal. Like it's a love letter to life, man. It's like,
I love that.
And having something to show for it. It's a breadcrumb trail of your lived experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's the truest form of just like existence. That's probably a little cerebral, but I really think it's true.
I love it, dude. I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, you know? It's like, life happens fast. It's so easy to forget things, but if you see that photo or video, it comes back to you like that. And I think it's such a magical experience. So I'm with you. I love it.
Yeah, man.
Well, Johnny, dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was amazing. Excited to follow along and see all sorts of crazy meets you're at and different running shots that you're doing in the near future.
We should collaborate sometime next time I'm in the city.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Appreciate you having me on.
Of course, man.
Fun.
Appreciate it.